good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to everyone to tuning in to QTalks, the online, on-demand series of conversations around the future of water powered by KTM. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water, and I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes. So today is actually the second half of a two-part QTalk series, where you'll recognize our expert panelists. The first half was really recapping and reviewing 2022 as a whole. And then part two, where we are now, is looking ahead to 2023 and some of the key predictions. So we're going to go to our three panelists as we look ahead for the next 12 months. And as a kind of small disclaimer, these are predictions. So if they don't come to fruition and they're not correct, please take it up with the individual speakers themselves. So I'm delighted to reintroduce, we have Will Sarni, the founder and CEO of Water Foundry. We have Professor Dragan Savic, the CEO of KWR Water Research Institute. And last but not least, we have Professor Newsha Ajami, the Chief Development Officer at Earth and Environmental Sciences for Berkeley Lab. Will, Dragan, and Newsha, welcome back.
Good to be back. Happy New Year.
Thanks for having us. Happy New Year.
Thank you. So I distinctly remember at the end of the 2022 sort of recap, I asked if you were all sort of optimistic around this year ahead. And I think the collective response that everyone is pretty much cautiously optimistic that we have the solutions to help solve water, but it's going to be a challenging year ahead. So in terms of predictions, I think I want to sort of maybe throw to you, Will, first. Let's start in the digital space, because a phrase you often refer to is the democratization of data. So do you think this is going to progress, accelerate in the next 12 months? We're going to see more action there?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, but there are some nuances to it. And there are two things I'll bring up. One is going back to a question that Dragan posed quite a while ago that has stuck in my brain, and I think it's going to come to life this year, which is, why is there no Uber for water? And I think in a lot of ways we're actually seeing that right now in terms of democratizing access to data, actionable information going directly to the customer and consumer. So, kudos to Dragan for bringing this up a while ago. And I think we actually are seeing that, in particular in smart water homes, in terms of the ability to give the homeowner or renter real-time information on water use, the predictive capabilities in terms of why there might be a failure in their pipes, and also real-time water quality testing at the tap, and also treatment alternatives for those that decide that they want a point of use treatment system. So I think urbanization is on its way, and I really like connecting that thought to the water sector. And the second one is, there's a lot of digital technologies out there, and what I am seeing and hearing in part based on some conferences that I attended late last year is that, yeah, digital technology is great, and we're sort of still dabbling in it, and it's very much an ad hoc exercise. And in some ways, not that we need to take a step back, but I think we really need to start thinking about transformation and strategy if we're really going to move to a digital water sector and water management, in a very large sense. So sort of going back to management consulting and what that means with respect to transforming a public or private sector enterprise is going to get this to be stickier in terms of adoption of technologies, because it suddenly fits into a strategy for an enterprise and a workforce and so on. So I'd say on the digital play, those are the two things that I believe are going to manifest itself in a bigger way this year.
Very good. So on the digital side, obviously a theme that will continue from the 2022 review would be the need for integrated solutions, right? There's no silver bullet or one solution that's going to do this. But picking up on that phrase you used, the Uberization, which in the context you spoke about, Will, was around the kind of democratization of digital and data. But I think maybe throw that back to you, Dragan, as it was your original quote, perhaps. Was it more geared towards a kind of single company that's scaling to that kind of unicorn level to help solve water? Was that more the original kind of phrasing on when it comes to like the Uber of water?
It was more like a throwaway comment about how we don't have somebody who changes the business model of the water industry, because Uber changed taxi and transportation basic model, and we're still kind of struggling. And I second what Will is saying, because that integration and the huge change with the cloud computation, and now we're talking about opening the data. What I'd like to see, and I think we will see very soon, is this collective data gathering that will end up with the water cloud, because not a single utility or not a single entity has all the data required to understand water cycle and water processes. And I think that's where we're going. And as KWI is working on this collective research with the drinking water utilities, I think that's what is going to happen with a utility at large.
There's an interesting project called the Waterverse, EU-backed, that KWR is getting involved in. We've just written some content on it, actually, which is exactly in that side, right, around data sharing, because historically, cybersecurity concerns, quite right, have been a bit of a sort of bottleneck of process in different stakeholders throughout a watershed in sharing that data. So that's a really interesting prediction. So you think 2023, the birth of the water cloud, where more data is openly shared between different people, could sort of progress.
Excuse me, if I could just add, there was quite a lot of kind of suspicion about the cloud computing and security. And now lots of companies, lots of industries are now open kind of to that idea. So I would imagine what would happen with the water cloud.
Very good. Okay. Well, Newsha, anything to sort of comment then in terms of the democratization of data as per Will's point, or in terms of the water cloud and really on the open access of data side for 2023?
Yeah, happy to add. I think it's important to realize what the triggers are as we are looking at this kind of transitions. In some cases, it's the utility or the water sector in a specific region or a country is very forward-looking and willing to take such risks and try new things. But in some other cases, it's basically other issues, or, for example, natural disasters or other challenges can trigger such a change, because then it leads to policy change and potentially demand for such a change within an industry. And I think what I see in this as this train is moving towards digitization and democratizing water, I predict that these extreme events we are experiencing, the drought in Europe this summer, the floods in Pakistan, the floods 2 years ago in Germany, as you know, in California right now, we are in the midst of a 3-year extreme drought while experiencing a serious deluge and flooding and precipitation. And so it's, all these sort of extreme, to the extreme ends that we are experiencing at the same time, within such short frames. I think it eventually would help the water sector to be a little bit more, less maybe risk averse and more interested in solutions that can potentially help them manage the system in a more reliable way. And I think that goes back to what Dragan said, which is not just at the customer level and figuring out at the service level, but also beyond that at the watershed level. How can we collect better data? How can we use that data in a real time to better understand river levels and water levels in different rivers, and groundwater levels in different basins, and potentially connect connect that into water availability, and then connect that to working with customers at their end to think about the water use, or actually get involved in some of the issues that needs to happen in a watershed level, right? If you save water in your home, we can potentially put more water in this ecosystem, right? So these kind of democratizing can also create more sort of transparency around action. And I think that is something that I don't think necessarily by the end of 2023 we'll get there, but I think we are moving toward that direction, and it's quite exciting to see.
Very good. No, it's interesting the point you raised. If you effectively improving the efficiency of the water network, the wider benefits of water availability at the watershed as well. So, Will, a phrase that we've started to see come up in the last couple of years, and it'd be good to get your thoughts on whether this is a prediction as well for 2023, is watershed health from the private sector, linking across to the public sector, and kind of this need for collaboration between different stakeholders. Is that something where you think there'll be more progress this year?
Absolutely. And I find it really fascinating for a number of reasons. One is, in the utility sector, we know water doesn't come from the tap. It comes from a watershed somewhere. And the fact that the private sector is now getting the understanding the value of the watershed, not just for input water, but also for their supply chain, their communities, their workforce. It creates this functional unit, essentially, that can drive connectivity between the public sector, government agencies and utilities, and the private sector around really having alignment on what we can do to, solve wicked water problems. So I just see watershed health as just this absolutely amazing opportunity to drive collaboration and action and investment. And, you and I have talked about this, Tom. I'm certainly seeing it more and more from the private sector. And, you'll see that at Stockholm World Water Week. You'll see that at UN Water Week, based on some of the conversations I'm having with private sector entities that are running side events. So I think it's sticky, as they say, and I'm excited about it as an opportunity to do better, for all of us. And that's the optimist in me, Tom. So, yeah.
Okay, to do better in 2023, I think everyone listening can take that forward. So there's quite a few things I want to come back onto, including sort of unconventional water sources, but a topic and a phrase that we keep hearing, and it would be interesting to kind of get thoughts from Newsha and then Dragan on kind of water in the circular economy, and actually the role of the water industry in terms of connecting through whether it's energy generation, whether it's resource generation, actually seeing more tangible, perhaps unconventional partnerships in 2023 and kind of going beyond the theoretical. So, Newsha, I know, is that one of your predictions as well in terms of the role of the water sector in the circular economy? And then we'll come to Dragan afterwards.
Absolutely. I think there's so many different ways you can look at this, but ultimately the point is how can we use, reuse, and use again, like the water, and basically create, the water cycle is a circular system, and how can you bring that to a smaller scale and add, do it at home, do it in your neighborhood, do it at the system level. So kind of trying to create that circular economy around water at different scale is going to be super important. I think one prediction is that we are going to see more and more people, more and more of utilities, and many more utilities actually trying to use circular economy around water, focusing on centralized reuse. And that fits in their business model. They like it because they have control over the water that comes into the system, treated, put back into the pipes to people's taps. And that is one way to do it. And utilities are very comfortable with that. But I would predict actually we are going to see more disruption at a smaller scale, homes, neighborhoods, buildings, and we'll see a little bit more around people who are installing on-site reuse systems in their buildings, or trying to do more gray water reuse. And so, and that is actually the most exciting part of this. That is what I'm excited about, and I'm predicting more and more of that is going to happen, especially as people become more aware of the challenges the watershed is facing, the ecosystem is facing, the challenges our water systems are facing due to these extremes that we are experiencing. So, and ultimately goes back to the comment you made, Tom, that you can also recover a lot of if we are talking about a centralized reuse, there is an opportunity to generate energy and recover resources from that wastewater. So that also by itself can be an economic engine that enables this transition as well. But again, I think to deal with some of the extremes we are seeing right now and experiencing, we need to think about circular economy around water at every scale. And I'm predicting we are going to see more and more of that across the world.
That's really interesting. So the role of individuals and households as part of the circular economy beyond sort of centralized supply and infrastructure. I know, Will, you're perhaps chomping at the bit to comment on decentralized versus centralized. But before we come to you, Dragan, in terms of water in the circular economy, where's your sort of prediction for what we might see this year in 2023?
It's a chicken and egg here question. I would say that more competition for water sources, water resources, will cause more circular economy in the water sector, because we will have more fiercer competition. Newsha talked about the water cycle, and in that water cycle you have everything. For example, in the Netherlands you have very intensive agriculture, you have industry, and you have domestic use of water. And we already seen in the past that in drought situation like 2018, like last year, there is a competition, and that will increase, obviously, with the pressure will increase. And then we will have to turn to circular solutions, and that's where we have the situation where we have non-conventional water resources, when we reuse wastewater from agriculture or from the industry or from the domestic wastewater. And also, we're talking about looking into individual, now commercial and industrial outfits to look into their footprints, energy, water, food, and how they can manage that in a holistic manner. And that brings circularity again to the question. So my prediction, more competition, and obviously agree with Newsha about more circularity.
Great, thanks, Dragan. No, I definitely agree with the points about increased competition for the perhaps same water sources, and also kind of how that may force stakeholders to look to sort of non-conventional sources. But Newsha, you had sort of additional comments you wanted to make on that side.
Yeah, I just wanted to refocus on competition in a different way. Remember, for many years, we have been sort of looking at wastewater as something that we don't need, we don't want, and we want to get rid of it as fast as we can. And now there will be competition over how can we get our hands on that wastewater. So, or the water that comes from the agriculture, or water that comes from industry. So the competition in that end is going to be quite fierce as well. And there will be there will be a need for better understanding how to repurpose some of that water. So while it sounds really exciting to see this transition, it's going to require some more finessing and more solutions and technologies in place to enable that allocation as well.
I think that's not a bad prediction to see come to fruition, right? I mean, seeing the resource within wastewater, it's taken years to actually get to that stage, and even for organizations to reuse it, and to actually compete over the water that you can extract from wastewater would be not a good problem to have, but to have more people seeing the value in that, within 2023. So Will, this idea of non-conventional water resources is something that you often speak about. How do you sort of see atmospheric water generation, decentralized reuse, perhaps gaining momentum in this year as one of your predictions?
Yeah, I am a fan, if you will, in terms of the technology category. I don't know where it's going to go, but I do believe we need to give it a try and explore that as opposed to being dismissive. Um, so where I see this fitting, it really goes back to what Newsha was saying in terms of, right now the whole menu is centralized systems. And we are in the process of moving to a more diverse menu of including localized, decentralized, and off-grid water supply and water treatment systems. And that ties into the whole smart water home, democratizing access to data, treatment alternative, other sources, and so on. So, as I think about potentially where this could go, it includes alternative sources of water, whether it's water reuse in the home, whether it's atmospheric water generation, either on grid or off grid, and localized in-home water reuse. And there's a term of art that's emerging, which is extreme decentralization, which is what could you do in your home to manage water the way you would manage energy through battery technology, renewables, your EV, whatever it may be. So, thinking about the lessons learned from the energy transition and pushing that into the world of water, I believe, is that extreme decentralization process. And obviously, it relates to circularity. Also, none of these things really sit in a silo.
I like how you phrased it as a menu of option. I guess historically, you could say the main course has been centralized, whereas moving forward into 2023, there may be some starters, appetizers, and desserts added to that as additional ways to sort of augment
Right.
the water cycle. Dragan, the kind of final thing I wanted to speak to you about was around water and health. I know it's an area that KWR has seriously been looking into over the years, especially on the kind of wastewater epidemiology, on the COVID-19 leading the way. What's your predictions for 2023 when it comes to that water and health sort of bracket?
You probably heard me saying, not least jokingly, that I'm a health professional working in the water sector. The reason for that is that basically water means health in general, and we've seen that last year, previous year, sorry, with COVID-19, when suddenly wastewater based epidemiology got into a very prominent kind of situation, and we were tracking what is happening, and that is what democratized understanding of the infections in the population, because that gave a much wider picture of the infections. But my prediction for this coming year and quite a few years ahead is that this is going to scale up to unbelievable level, because we're talking now with tracking any type of virus in sewers. We're talking about looking into medication that we release in sewers. We've been doing, drugs abuse for over 10 years through European research, again, tracking in wastewater. And this is going to, and what I also see, and I predict that health professionals, real medical doctors, will start to look into this, which previously they haven't. So for me, that's something that we will have more and more kind of in focus of the next period.
Absolutely. There's some sort of great cases where the data from the wastewater epidemiology was predicting where the next sort of wave of COVID was way before the public testing data was coming through. So it's a really interesting that you're saying it's going to move from COVID to other diseases to drugs, as have been done in the past as well. So I want to sort of maybe similarly to how we wrapped up the 2022 review is just to kind of get a sense of optimism for 2023, and the one thing aside from prediction that you're most looking forward to when it comes to this year. It could be an event, it could be a change or anything like that. Just as when you look across the next 12 months, the one thing that you think, this is what I'm really, really looking forward to in your professional line of work. Let's start with you, Will.
Sure. Yeah, you can go all sorts of places with this. I would say I am most excited about innovation and partnerships. The term of art in the corporate world is collective action. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we are seeing aligned action and actually even further, where we're creating catalytic communities that we've never really seen before, and partnerships that we've never seen before. For me, that is really the most exciting thing that I want to spend time on this year, speaking to people that know nothing about water, like the climate community, and bringing everybody together. That was a little bit of a big Tom, but yeah. So I don't want to say it's less about technology, but for me, it's about people and how we connect. That I'm really, really excited about.
So forging of unconventional partnerships, bringing in outsiders, very good.
Absolutely.
What about you, Newsha? What's kind of the one thing you're most looking forward to seeing, or even helping to achieve in your line of work as well?
I mean, I like Will's comment on inserting water into the climate discussion. I think that's such an important thing. And for sure, we are seeing some of that happening this year with the UN Water Summit that's going to happen in March in New York. I think it's a positive sign and a positive direction, and I'm hoping this continues on for water to have a central place and for us to actually invest more in water as a climate solution. And I would actually, on the prediction for, or what I'm hoping for 2023, I would say I agree with Will. I think, but I will provide maybe a little bit slightly different angle on this coalition building. And I think there will be a lot of stronger coalition will build around soft infrastructure, data analytics, information technology, and green and natural infrastructure. There will be a lot more work will be done on building partnerships and coalition to bring these into the forefront of the water sector. And I think a lot of that is or will be enabled by access to data and information, because coalition building requires trust, and trust requires information and data. And I think this is, in a way, I'm hoping the marriage of data and information and water would lead into a better and more unconventional coalition that can lead the sector forward. So looking forward to that.
I'm seeing a sort of great stuff, thanks, Newsha, sort of a trend around these collective groups, whether it's a catalytic community, you mentioned, Will, or sort of coalition building from Newsha. Dragan, sort of final words from you then on what you're most looking forward to seeing or helping to achieve through your professional work as well in 23.
Continuing on the line of partnerships, innovation, I would say that KWR has been involved in water research for over 50 years. Last year we celebrated 50 years, but this year we're celebrating 40 years of joint research program. And this is where collectivity of drinking water utilities and research organizations like KWR came together to produce innovation that keeps the Dutch and Flemish water industry in such a good shape. So that's, for me, celebration of that is going to happen this year.
Very good. Well, look forward to those celebrations. Thanks to everyone tuning in for this part 2 of the QTalks. Again, a quick reminder to jump back to the first part to look at the kind of the recap of the major trends in 2022. In terms of the topics we've got coming out, the future QTalks are going to look at topics like PFAS through to the aging workforce challenges and actually some of the softer side of the industry as well. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to Will, Newsha, and Dragan for your expertise as a panel as well. And stay tuned for the next QTalks coming soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, folks.
Thanks for having us.